There are moments that pass quietly. No headlines, no announcements, no intention to be remembered. And yet, once you notice them, they refuse to let go. This was one of those moments. It didn't happen at the center of the screen. It didn't ask for attention. It wasn't framed, emphasized, or explained. It happened behind someone else's voice, behind a familiar smile, behind a live that felt normal. And maybe that's why it stayed. Because once you see it, you realize how easily it could have been missed, and how impossible it is to forget. At first, nothing felt unusual. The live unfolded the way it always does. Comfortable, familiar, safe. One member speaking at the front. Steady tone, easy laughter. The kind of presence that guides attention without effort. If you were watching casually, your eyes stayed exactly where they were meant to stay. Everything felt controlled, predictable, unthreatening. And then, without warning, without sound, something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just subtly. Behind him, time slowed. There was a pause first, barely noticeable, but long enough to feel deliberate. A breath held a fraction too long. A stillness where movement usually flows. Then a step closer, not rushed, not careless. An arm lifted slowly, resting where it had rested many times before. Yet this time, it felt different. Because Jungkook didn't pull away. He didn't laugh, didn't shift, didn't acknowledge the camera. Instead, his body responded before his expression could. He leaned in, as if the space between them had suddenly become too wide, as if closing that distance required no thought at all. And still, no words. That was the part that unsettled people, because silence in moments like this is never empty. The live continued. The voice at the front kept talking, smiling, guiding the flow like nothing had changed. And that contrast was impossible to ignore. One member facing the audience, composed and open, behind him. Something quiet and deeply personal unfolding in plain sight. No one turned around. No one reacted. Whether it was unnoticed or simply unacknowledged, no one knows. But the moment existed anyway. Unprotected, untranslated. At first, the reaction was confusion. Did anyone else see that? Clips were paused, replayed, slowed down. Fans leaned closer to their screens, not looking for drama, but for clarity. Why did it feel heavy? Why did it feel different? Because the gesture wasn't playful. It wasn't exaggerated. It didn't perform. If anything, it looked like something that slipped out, something instinctive, something unfiltered. Jungkook's expression gave it away. The smile stayed, but it didn't reach his eyes. There was softness there, and something harder to name. Relief, comfort, or maybe something he didn't want anyone to notice. Taehyung's arm tightened, just slightly, not possessive, not dramatic, just enough to be felt, as if responding to something unsaid, as if offering presence instead of explanation. What made it linger was not what happened, it was what didn't. No comment, no joke, no clarification to soften the weight. The live ended, but the moment didn't. It stayed in the silence afterward, sitting quietly, waiting, because when something this small creates this much reaction, it usually touches something deeper, something unresolved, something unfinished, and most unsettling detail. The hug didn't look like a beginning. It looked like something that had existed long before the cameras were on, and something not ready to end. Within minutes, the footage began to circulate, not the wide shots, not the obvious angles. Frames were cropped tighter, details isolated, a hand placement, a shoulder leaning in. The exact second Jungkook stopped smiling, the hug became a still image, and the still image became a question. Some said it was habit, years of closeness, muscle memory. Others weren't convinced. They noticed the pause before the movement, the way Taehyung's posture shifted first, the way Jungkook reacted instantly, as if he had been waiting. Waiting. That word made people uncomfortable, because waiting implies expectation, and expectation implies familiarity. Taehyung wasn't looking at the camera. His gaze was lowered, focused somewhere only Jungkook could see. There was no performance in his expression, no awareness of being watched. For a brief moment, it felt like the world had disappeared around them. And Jungkook didn't hesitate. That detail mattered more than anyone wanted to admit, because hesitation suggests choice. And there was none. As the theories grew, so did the unease. Not because of what people thought the moment meant, but because of what it didn't do. It didn't ask permission, didn't seek approval, didn't explain itself. It simply existed. And moments like that are difficult to control. Old footage resurfaced, past lives, backstage clips, glances that lingered half a second too long, touches once dismissed as casual, brotherly, meaningless. Now, framed by this moment, they felt heavier, almost deliberate. Fans began noticing patterns of proximity. Taehyung drifting closer when Jungkook grew quiet. Jungkook grounding himself when Taehyung was near. Not constant, not obvious, selective. And selective closeness implies awareness. After the live, nothing exploded. There was no chaos. There was something quieter and far more unsettling. Distance, not obvious, not cold. Smiles still appeared. Schedules continued. But the atmosphere had changed. Taehyung spoke less. When he did, his words were measured, carefully placed. Jungkook filled the space more than usual. Talking, moving, distracting. It felt unbalanced, like one was retreating while the other tried to keep everything moving. And yet, when they shared a frame, the distance between them was almost non-existent. That contradiction fueled everything. Because people don't stay close to someone they're trying to avoid. No reassurance came. No playful callback. No moment to neutralize attention. The absence of explanation became the explanation. If it had meant nothing, it would have been dismissed. If it had been accidental, it would have been laughed off. But instead, there was silence. And silence leaves room for everything. Fans began asking different questions. Not what does it mean, but what does it cost? What does it cost to feel something deeply? In a space where everything is watched, what does it cost to care? When caring itself becomes something to manage. Neither of them denied the moment. Neither reframed it. They let it exist, unresolved, because denial is easy. Silence requires something else. The next live was smooth, controlled, almost sterile. Everything where it should be. And yet, something was missing. These. As it ended, there was a fleeting glance. Barely a second. Jungkook looked toward Taehyung. Not dramatic, just searching. Taehyung met his eyes. They held it a moment too long. Then Taehyung looked away. No touch, no words, just restraint. And that was the most revealing part. Because comfort doesn't need permission, but restraint does. The moment behind the voice, behind the camera, had changed something. Not because it was seen, but because it reminded everyone that not everything meaningful announces itself. Some things exist quietly, between people, between breaths, and once they surface, even for a second, they don't disappear. They wait, not as a beginning, not as an ending, but as something that has always been there.